So after our last session, I've been trying to pick portals that favor more tempo play
Hmm.
to just try to slime items and be strong in the early game, which
Oh
has
yeah.
been working out pretty well.
Yeah, I think the big thing with what we talked about too is that just because I'm saying that when you don't can't play a super strong stage two, you should there's over stage three does not mean that you can't also like slam items on stage two, right? If you have an item that you slam on stage two that works really well on stage three, like a Shojin, for example, right? It works on like everything. Go for it, 100%.
Hmm.
Right, Centipare is definitely a great opener. I forget. Did we talk about I don't think we did last time. I remember with someone else. That it's almost always a really good thing, in my opinion, to hold. Like if you ever hit like the really big frontline chosen, especially when you have like something like a Centipare, it's always pretty decent to hold them. Because if you take that chosen that chosen Cassante, you have guaranteed frontline. Especially when you get drop chain, you have guaranteed frontline. So in that situation, it's really good to just
Uh,
play Centipare because you're always playing on Senna there, right? You just put Centipare on board, and then especially when you get drop chain, right, you can just play any frontline thing in the game and have a decent board. So
mm,
like those Quesantes, right? The Lilia less so. I think Lilia is definitely a little bit worse, but like the Quesante, Vi even right, Vi Jinx can work really well there. Um, Olaf works totally fine as a generic front line. I think anything like that is pretty important to pick up whenever you have something like Centipare because even just play it until you lose if you want to, right? Worst case scenario is just something good to put a Sunfire on, or something good to put your like whatever chain item it becomes on. You just save a lot of HP. So I think that's a pretty much whenever you see something like that on stage two, you should hold it for at least a little bit, unless you're like really teaming for
okay.
something in particular,
Okay, that makes a lot of sense, which would have fixed some of the issues I had in this early game.
right? Because I think the question I'd be asking myself there, and what you'd ask yourself, you should always be asking yourself, is what chosen do I want here, right? In that situation, what chosen did you want? If you were to ask yourself that,
Uh, Ideally, if I'm playing around Senna, I mean, I guess a true damage cannon with four true damage, like if I had a Yasuo, would be
right?
like
That would be
ideal.
yeah, that would be like the super ideal option, right? But if you boil it down, even if you like kind of take a step back a little bit and say like just conceptually, right? What would make your board better? If you have Senna pair, right? Assuming you're gonna get Senna two, it's gonna be a lot of damage. What makes your board well rounded there on stage two? And it's
Yeah,
kind
it's
of just
just any front line.
yeah, any big frontliner, right? And
So
then
you
if
take
you
like
sorry, go ahead.
uh Tom Kench, like Bruiser Tom Kench as well.
Yeah, totally can. Totally can. I think especially when you get that chain drop, right? Because we talked a lot about matching items to chosens or to headliners. As soon as you get to drop that chain, it's really good to pick up that Quesante or like that TK or whatever it is, just because you know that that chain wants to be on frontline anyways, and so you have a really good chance to be able to slam something, right?
Hmm.
You don't have to for sure. If you feel like you look around and you still think you're strong enough, still that's totally fine. But it's very easy to slam some chain item on that thing, and it's going to mean that you have a really good chance to just have a super strong stage two because you said conceptually all I want is something to go in my front line to match my back line, and then even better with Quesante is that there's so many carryover points, right? There's Felios with Heartsteel as an easy way in with the Senna pair. There's Echo. If you hit a high roll in Echo, then you can just play 4 Sentinel with Senna and plus 2 Rapid Fire. There's like all kinds of ways to abuse to like connect the dots between Senna
Hmm.
and Quesante. So it's not only just a good frontliner. It's just a nice little way to get into some good synergies.
Okay, makes sense. As far as augments here, I usually like Twin Terror, but I'm like looking at these items and I mean, I could play the double Sennas and then just slam a Sunfire, but I don't have like a tank
Yeah.
in the front line. So it seems like I'm kind of weak with that right now.
Yep.
Yeah. A- And
You have
then
a pretty
Lucky
nice slate
Gloves,
here.
I don't, yeah. I haven't picked birthday present at all this set. It just seems
Because
very volatile.
it's yeah, it's to say it's like one of those things where um it's I think you want to play it whenever you have upgrades naturally, right? So if you had like Senna two and a Quesante two here, birthday present's probably just like a first kind of element, right? Because you get so strong that you shriek for so long that basically you just play like really flexibly around your level ups. You get to 8 on 4-2, get a 2-star 4 cost, and pray it's good enough to get you to 9. And then you get to 9, get
Yeah.
a 2-star 5 cost, and then you like roll a bit, and then pray you can get to 10 and get another 2-star 5 cost. That's good. And then it can be very good. It's very volatile, like you said. I think it's something that really
Hmm.
rewards. It's like a win more kind of thing. I think from stage two. It can also kind of make you win sometimes if you have like even one upgrade. But with the Sunfire, I think it's probably Sunfire is like a good spot to consider it. But where you don't have any 2-star units or any pairs or anything, I think it's definitely not great. Lucky Gloves is one of those things where I think you're right that it's like meh, right? You don't have any extra gloves on bench, so it's like you're one TG and you're not trying to play for tempo
Yeah.
anyways. So it's not fantastic. And Twin Terror, your items are definitely a little weird for it. I'd say if you were to take one of these three, like Twin Terror is probably the most consistent from this spawn, and you can just either play like Double Trouble Senna reroll even, just because it's pretty good right now. You go like Sunfire and then look for like Shojin or GS or something. Probably Shojin off Carousel. And that's like actually a pretty good line. You just play two Sennas and KDA, like the normal super fan stuff. Um, but I mean, you're probably feeling better off rerolling. So
Yeah. Okay.
oh
So I'm thinking roll the dice just because it does really well, but I don't have any 2 stars. So
yeah. So the thing with roll the dice, like you said, right, you don't have any 2 stars. It's something that really it's like not super amazing later in the game unless you get kind of lucky with the big thing is you also roll past lucky gloves, which reduces the value of roll the dice quite a bit because now you can't hit lucky gloves roll the dice, which is like a really good combination of augments,
mhm.
right? I mean it can streak you stage 2 for sure. It's like in this situation I think it's a little bit more of a lottery-ish option just because you don't know what your chosen is. You don't know if you're gonna have upgraded units on stage 2, and if you do, then it's insane, right? Like roll the dice is the strongest stage 2 element in the game. It beats Cruel Pact very consistently. It beats like everything as long as you upgrades. I'd say stationary support's probably the safest thing possible. It gives you some
Yeah.
extra direction. Cruel Pact is also kind of cool if you want to do it, but it's like maybe not the best idea.
And also dangerous since I don't have any two
Yeah,
stars. If
very very
someone has like
dangerous.
a full off roll the dice.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, chosen Olaf roll the dice just clears your whole board, 100%.
Yeah. Okay.
This isn't and for us right again. This isn't bad. It's just tough to play around it when you don't have that chosen. I think you're immediately punished pretty hard for not picking up that Cassante.
Yeah. And so here I'm even questioning like, do I do I try to level so I have better Senate odds to like try to hit earlier, level to like get a 2 cost headliner on 2/2, like I could get this Nami. I'm just like lost as to how to approach even just here. Like I could run the Senna and the Philios if I go 4.
Yeah, I think the big thing here, this is a very common spot I feel like that people get into, myself included, where it's like, what the hell do you do now, right? Because you have all these pairs, like what exactly do you say?
Or I could make 10. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right. And so I think the first big thing you want to do is get direction from your augment, right? Because this is the kind of situation where you need some direction. You need to like
Yeah.
find where you're getting pieces of direction from your resources. So I think there are two big things happening for you right now, right? One is that you have Sunfire potential, and two, you have Radiant TG. And so those two things I think mean that you do want to be strong if you can, and you can play a pretty strong board for what it's worth, right? What you can do is if you just like you said, you can level, you can play Tarot, Kennen, Senna, Aphelios, and I mean with the Radiant TG and a Sunfire, I assume you need to send the Sunfire at all. If maybe your Radiant TG just rolls like Radiant Warmog's Radiant Bramble, and the Kennen one just beats the whole board. Um, but I think you probably want to play a little bit for tempo here, just because your items are very much reward like your augment and your items from 2-1 or from stage 1 are very much going to reward you for playing a strong board here. It's again one of those things where like the Kisana is coming back to haunt you a bit, but you can still make a strong board 100% here, and you can just if you level, you can also see a better chosen next round. Again, if you lose 2-1, it's not even the end of the world, but you probably win. Obviously, you have to scout a little bit, but you probably win with like Radiant TG plus Sunfire in your front line with 2 rapid fire.
Okay. So that was the other thing that I think I messed up this game is I was thinking like, do you pretty much always want to put the Radiant TG on frontline?
Yep.
Like, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I guess when you roll frontline items on backline, it's just no good.
Yeah, it feels really bad. And if you roll backliners on the front line, then your Kennen still doing like 10 trillion damage because you rolled like
Yeah.
Radiant Rabadon
Okay.
something. I'd say yeah, in general. The big thing is that it also gives like HP and stuff too, right? I think the Radiant TG actually has more HP than normal TG. I might be wrong about that. But yeah, you pretty much always want to just stick it on a frontliner. Because I think right now, right? Because you
Okay.
could go like Radiant TG Kennen and like Sunfire Tarek or something. Although she rolled some pretty good items for what it's worth. It's like very good. Oh, pretty close. Yeah, very close. I think the big thing there too we talk about this a lot, but it's good to remember always, or to think about it always, is making sure that you're scouting as you're before you're making decisions to level or not to, because it can
Mm.
always impact it, right? So I think this is actually a bait. For I think this is a big
Oh,
bait. The reason being is that one, right, you want to look for that backline or the front line chosen if you can, because the big thing is
yeah.
that you're lacking a front line in spades right now, and you have Senna pair or Felios pair, and so by selling, because now you have like Tarot, but it's not very good compared to like
Yeah.
Gragas chosen or like a Pantheon chosen. Any big frontline chosen feels a lot better, I think. While and then you can hit Senna 2 and Felios 2 naturally. This is actually a lot of what we
Hmm.
talked about even coming into this, right? With how to set yourself up naturally for a strong stage three. You have a much stronger stage three by playing around Senna pair, Felios pair, and then naturaling those while playing around a frontline chosen. Um, Oh yeah, getting on the 3-2 because then all you need to stabilize on 3-2 in this spot, if you have Senna pair, Felios pair here, is to roll until you hit Senna 2 Felios 2, which you might just natural them as well, and then
Right.
to hit one frontline chosen, and there's like a trillion frontline chosens you can hit, and a lot of them are like very very strong too, like Mumu is set. Um, I like a lot of the there's a bunch of two costs too, like Gragas, Garen, or even there's like a ton.
Yeah. So I think I went from sacking stage two a lot to now like overemphasizing stage two when I'm not necessarily in the best position to win stage two.
Yep, yeah, I think I probably should have talked about this last time because it's very they have to go together, right? They're definitely inextricably linked. The idea of making sure that you're strong enough that sometimes you have to sack stage two to be strong enough on stage three, and you can't always just play the strongest stage two of all time. I think for what's worth, I think in
Yeah.
this game you could have played a very strong stage two. I think it was just unfortunately missing the Kisante and just being more willing to take the big random frontline chosens, but yeah, I'd say it's really important to make sure that you are setting yourself properly for stage three. This Olaf is a beast.
Yeah.
What a monster. This is always a little scary because now we're yeah, I mean you have to lean disco, I guess, now because you're poor as well and you guys have the disco units, but disco is sussy.
Yeah. And the Radiant Thieves Gloves doesn't have a great target to put on in disco.
Yeah, yeah. I think that ideally, right, the TG goes on like a Kali, a Zed, and a
Yeah.
Viego, right? Like a Poppy of the Radiant TG just always pops
Hmm.
off like very, very hard. Um, so one of those like more flex boards are really, really good. I think the big thing with
So
Senna
would you
too.
not have,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Would you not have Slam Shojin there?
Uh, I think you can. I think it's totally fine to slam a Shojin there. Because I think you have to play around it now. I just think I think it's one of those things where it's like playing damage control. I know we talk about that a lot.
Yeah.
I feel like I say that a lot, but it's one of those things where like it's not really like I think slamming a Shojin there is totally fine and a good way to try to get back into the game a bit. I think it's already just gonna be a very tough game.
Yeah.
Oh, the Seraphine items. Fuck it, frontline Seraphine. It's time.
Yeah, I guess I should have done that, huh?
I actually,
And she'd heal herself too.
yeah, exactly. I played a game of the Genshin Resolve um, Titans Radiant BT Seraphine in the front line. Actually, I think I went third with it.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
It was just basically a like a big drain tank. It was like it basically was an Akali or something, or like an
Yeah.
Olaf kind of deal because she'd kill everything and heal herself and then stack a bunch.
I was like, what was it from that set with uh was it like Anivia or something from three sets ago or
It was
something?
Karma. Yeah, the frontline one cost Karma. That would
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, you just like let her drain tank the whole board. You'd solo frontline this. Yeah, it was basically the exact same concept, 100%. Because I didn't have a mana item for her, so I just put her up front with, and that's how you get mana generation.
Yeah, actually Seraphine with roll the dice is not bad if you roll tank stuff if you put her front
Yeah,
line.
you just stick her ass in the front line, I guess. Yeah, I was talking about like the Gragases and the Amumus and the sets, but the real frontliner that you wanted the whole time was Seraphine. Oh, there you go. And that's actually
Yeah, stone
Gigabus.
plate.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so you're angling disco, right? I think taking bull or taking uplink is fine. It's totally fine. You're angling disco. You also have the radiant TG, which gives you some more uplink value. Um,
The hard part here is do you not make econ to hold on to this one cost disco units?
I think you just hope we find him again. I don't know if you can afford it. It's really
Okay.
tough. It like feels really bad, but I think you probably
Yeah.
can't afford it. I think it's correct, yeah, to sell there.
It'd be nice to get that TF, but
I think there was actually someone else potentially angling Disco too, right?
yes. There are a bunch of Seraphine KDA players too. So it's like basically I have to play Disco ideally. Like I guess I could go KDA like Ari Warrior with the Thieves Gloves on,
Like a Kali or
Zed
something or
or
Zed. Yep.
yeah. Or I go Karthus Akali. But the main thing is I'm poor.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say for what it's worth. Also, man, Gigabis once again on the
Yeah.
Seraphine. I think
I
it's
really
probably
should have
better to
just
angle.
frontliner.
Yeah.
I could have streaked stage 3.
I think it's probably better to angle the Ari Warrior stuff, like you said here. I think you're definitely not like super locked into Disco. Obviously, you're gonna play like lower cap Ari, but you're playing lower cap anyways. So at this point, yeah.
Yeah.
Now she's got rating even Shroud. She's even more of a beast. Um, so it's like not a bad spot to just say, okay, I'm gonna play for like a top six and just play this thing. I think the other option here potentially is just like play some wacky Lulu flex thing on 7 and hope that you go top six. I think it's not like the
Mm,
most terrible thing in the world. It's just gonna be a little awkward. It's gonna be you could still top four this game if you hit super hard on 4-2. You're gonna roll with like no gold, but if you hit super
yeah.
hard and like one roll, then it can be okay. It's just gonna be like incredibly difficult. These are kind of games of
So
TFT.
all of this,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, all of this just snowballed because I didn't pick up that Cassante.
Yep. Yeah, it's one of those games of TFT that like really shows that effect, right? And it's like, man, and it's like we can um try to dig ourselves out of the hole as much as we want, but it is like just it's a pain in the butt. And these are the ones that
Yeah.
feel really bad, or maybe not really bad, but like almost like a little tilting to look back on because it's like, man, that one thing, that one decision on stage one just hurt the whole
Yeah.
game. But it's
By the
I
way,
mean
I
it's a
end
pretty
up in
unforgiving
this,
game.
yeah. I end up in this situation often where on 4-1, I could slam items, but I'm just thinking I might as well wait to 4-2.
Mhm.
So I like figure out what headliner I hit to make sure I get better items on them than to try to preserve HP here.
Yeah, I think that's totally fine. I think it's totally fine. If you're like 20 HP, maybe a different situation, right? But I think in this situation, it's 100% okay.
Okay. And then I guess same thing. I want to keep the Kale to keep the Karthus Ecology line open, but I want more gold, and a 2 cost is easier to hit a 1 cost, so I'm thinking about just selling the Kale.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's really hard to get it. Basically, you need to play around something that uses the items you have right now, or the units you have right now. Which Karthus Ecology definitely does use the units, right? It uses the Nico, but outside of the Nico, everything else on the board would have to go. Where if you play around Ari, then you can keep the Kennen, you can keep the Gragas for a while, you can keep the Lulu for a bit if you want as well. Probably move the Shojin,
Hmm.
obviously, so maybe you don't keep her. But I think it ends up being like a little bit easier to play around like some scuffed Spellweaver Ari thing more often than not than it is a Kennen thing, or not a
Yeah.
Kennen thing, a Kale thing.
Okay. So binary airdrop, I'm like thinking with roll the dice isn't great, although I guess I have uplink, which is okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, New recruit, I'm always a sucker for, especially if I'm going a bunch of 4 costs.
Yeah,
It just like makes it easier to hit 2 carries. Harmless, I'm just like whatever on.
yeah. I think the nice thing about, so we talked about that one new recruit game, right? But I think the nice thing about this spot compared to that spot is that you're playing on a super fan, so it's actually not that hard to get the units that you need quality wise. Um, you just need a bunch of like one cost shitters, right? You need to hit the Lilia, and you can just like play a Nara for a while and play for a super fan. And just the big thing is that you get that Nico, and I think it's very hard to top four new recruit here, but I think it's like way easier to not go eighth off new recruit than it is off anything else. Just the fact that you can
Mhm.
like 2-star unit, right? You probably hit 2 stars some 4 costs using that Nico, and if you do, then hell yeah! If you somehow like a 2 cost or 2-star York or something with that, or like I don't know 2-star. I guess York's like the big hit, like Ziggs maybe or something. Then you're like really back into the game somehow, right? And that's obviously pretty high roll, but it opens yourself up to that. Where I think binary is good. Binaries will always be good. It's like it is maybe like the best augment in the game, but it's not necessarily always the best for just coming back from a bad spot. Um,
Mhm.
it is obviously just very very good in general. I think both binary and new recruit have arguments. I think new recruit is maybe a little bit better for if you're committed to just not going eighth in this game, which I don't know if you should necessarily. I think there's like a world where maybe you top four depending on lobby strength is something where you scout first probably and see like okay maybe if there's two people playing Heartsteel and they're already like chosen Ez or like chosen Zed or something or chosen Poppy with like big boards, maybe you say okay I'm not going to be able to win too much this game. Um, I, I'd lean like I don't know what I'd lean. I think I'd be hard pressed to lean either of these. There was one of the two. I'd say you can definitely reroll Harm Assist. I think Harm Assist is not great here, but you can definitely
Yeah.
click either of them, and I think it's totally fine.
Prismatic ticket, I'm going 8, so I'm not taking that.
Yeah, I think new recruit's okay. All right, it is time.
So I'm like at 7 gold, and I'm
Yeah.
like, might as well take this Amumu.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, I think that's okay. And you basically, I mean, you were in a spot right where you basically had to hit in one roll.
Yeah.
So I think I think that's okay to just yoink this and maybe don't take 50 damage in a fight. It's not ideal, obviously, right? Also, wow, those move items, holy shit, what a beast. Uh, um, it's just gonna be a hard. I mean, people are gonna be two starring units. It's gonna be difficult.
Yeah, I'm still taking infinite damage.
Yeah, I think maybe like try to roll again next turn. You probably have to. It's just it feels bad, but there's not a huge ability to find an out here. I feel like it's you could
Yeah.
almost argue that it's like binary roll on 7 in that situation. Low key, there's an argument for prismatic ticket, and you just roll the 0 and just hope you hit like a Mumu 3 Vexu Lulu 3 out of nowhere. That might be the bailout too. It's like a much
Hmm.
harder one to see, and also probably a harder one to actually. It's like a hard one to actually like hit the whole thing. But there's like a world where maybe that's it. What it is, it's just making the best of a bad spot. Um, I think like rolling on 7 is not terrible in this situation, but going 8, it's like maybe not that much worse than just going 8 and like YOLOing for a good chosen. But either way, it was going to be a little bit tough with the amount of goals you had.
Hmm.
Actually, the more I think about it,
So
though,
here,
that like take prismatic ticket roll down to 0 and 7 line actually doesn't sound that bad. As weird as it sounds, right? Because you can get to play basically just play like Vex, Amumu, Lulu. You get like a pretty strong board because you have like double Shojin, right? You have like a pretty strong board
yeah.
on 4-1 and then or 4-2 rather, and then you kind of just maybe you don't win any fight or you don't win a lot of fights on stage 4, but you're not like losing them. And if you high roll, then you can just hit like Lulu 3 or something, and then maybe you are winning fights all of a sudden. Um, and maybe you
So you flex between Vex or Lulu is what you're
or
saying?
you play both. Yeah, I think you just put both on the board. Honestly, I think
Play
you
both.
yeah I think you just play like 4 Guardian with like Vex Lulu, um, like Vex Lulu Amumu. So what you can do is you can play. So I think often this is a board I played a lot at the beginning of the set. It's like 3 super fan. I think it's like 3 super fan 4 Guardian. I mean, you'd be 8 for 4 Guardian, but it's like Nico. I'm trying to think what it is. It's Nico, Lulu, Echo, um, Nico, Lulu, Echo, Lilia, Kennen, Amumu, Vex, and then you can actually
Kali
drop. Okay, so they
to
have to be
get 3
one
KD.
more. Yeah, you have to do one more. Yeah, you look at calling on 8, I think is what it is. But if you
Okay.
hit the Vex, you can just drop the Lulu, or you can just not play Lulu in general and just play Vex if you want. That's maybe the better option there too. You can just not play Superfan as well. That works. Um,
Huh. Okay.
I feel like it works really well with like Spellweaver Lulu. Works really well with like the level somewhere actually works pretty well with Executioner Vex as well. There's a couple of ways to play it. It's not like it's not the the end all be all of boards, but it might be enough unit quality to get you somewhere in the game.
And
You
you
can
stick the Radiant TG on like Echo or Nico
probably
in
one
that
of the two.
case?
Yeah, it's not, or you can just put it on like the other backliner if you really want to. Just hope that you roll good items. I think there's maybe ideally you get into like some force shooter thing around a Kali plus Vex, right? You roll
Yeah.
down on 7 and you just hit a Kali 2, which I think is kind of feasible with Personic Ticket. Um, it's still probably not going to top for you, right? It's just maybe it'll do something. It's never going to be an easy game again from that kind of
Yeah.
spot, but it's one of those things where maybe it ends up being like a little less variance heavy and gets you like a guaranteed top 6 where like it may be this top forwards you, but it probably has a pretty high chance of bot doing you as well.
Hmm.
Um,
And Amumu wouldn't have great tank items like with the
No, he would not.
Sunfire.
He definitely would not have great items.
But yeah, I guess that
Yeah,
gives you a higher likelihood of top six.
yeah. I think it's a really really tough spot to top four for him. For what it's worth, I think if you're going to top four, you don't do that. I think if you're going to top four, you probably do this. But
Hmm.
it's like it's not likely to work out still.
Yeah. Okay. Well, given that this is where I'm at, I take the Caitlyn, I assume.
Yeah, yeah. I think you definitely take the Caitlyn. You can just go. I mean, you have good Caitlyn items. You have Shojin, Hodge, Deathblade. I think that's like totally fine.
Yeah.
You actually have Lucian already as well. Oh wait, low
Yeah.
key. That's not too bad. Yep. Yeah, I mean this looks good all of a sudden. You just need some 8-bit stacks and you're kind of off to the races.
Still losing.
I think the problem is that yeah, you do need some 8-bit stacks, but it's definitely not the end of the world all of a sudden. I think there's a yeah, there's some serious potential here. I get it's a little awkward to find something with the Radiant TG, but all of a sudden like, you're getting Jazz value, right? Not too shabby. You have a big yeah,
Yeah.
Ward rolls Gigabis as well. It's pretty good. There's a chance that you hit Lucian too randomly, right? Or like an Alawi too or
Hmm.
something. Good losses. Yeah, I think that's a I think that's a great thing to see. I'm not going to necessarily say recovery yet because who knows, right? But I think like you can even hold the Ziggs and just play like Bard Ziggs plus you drop out of 4 Sentinel, you play like Bard Ziggs plus Alawi or something if you hit the Alawi, right? And you just get it's basically just like a normal Heartsteel kind of looking board, honestly.
Yeah. Do you ever sell the Caitlyn there to try to
No,
hit something better or no?
no. I think you definitely need the
Okay.
Kate. Yeah, I do think you
Okay.
actually want to hold on to the Ziggs pretty badly here, though. I think the Ziggs has a pretty good chance of doing something for you. Um,
Hmm.
oh, Zed Bear is huge as well. I mean, I think if what you really want to do is want to get a little more Jazz value and probably get off 4 Sentinel. Just it ends up being like slightly more value to just get the juice going, and then maybe if you like Zed 2, Sack 2 or something, right? Yeah, you have the Nico, so
Yeah.
you definitely can. Oh, that's pretty good.
Was
There you
that
go.
was a huge mistake, huh? I shouldn't have sold
Yeah, I think
that.
you probably don't want to sell that. If you do sell, so you can sell it. You just have to roll like you have to do this incredibly fast and find something better, right? You have to like a Poppy chosen here.
Uh-huh.
If you find a Poppy chosen here, it's better for sure. But you have to be
Hmm.
doing this like incredibly quickly, because there's a good chance now that you might not end up. You have to like switch the items on the Lucian as well, just so you might not end up with a good chosen. Because you have to Niku it without the yeah you probably because you end up with the Morello stuck on it, which isn't like the end of the world, I guess, but it's not like 100% ideal.
I definitely should have stuck the Thieves' Gloves on earlier. Still end up losing.
Yeah, I think it ends up being like a better board probably, but it like it, the likelihood of you doing that fast enough, even if you're like you can be like Spencer who has the highest APM and competitive TFT, and I think he still doesn't do that fast enough to make
Yeah.
that work. You probably want to extend the Kate for like or honestly, you probably just Nico it and call it a day because your board.
Hmm.
I think your board is strong enough to do a little bit, right? You get to stay keep on board too is the big thing. Um, you get more damage. Maybe you keep rolling and maybe you find the Z2 and the Zac 2 naturally. Um, yeah, I think it ends up being a little tough. It's going to be a tough game anyways, though. I think a lot of that is somewhat from we can say it's from the Cason from picking up the Casante, but it's more so because uh, you just didn't really know why you needed to pick up the Casante, right? I guess, and hopefully that helps a bit, and that you really just
That and the Seraphine pickup and selling out of the Senna and Aphelios pair, and I think it was 2-2.
yeah. I think there's a good chance this
Means,
game really wants to be a Senna reroll game throughout the whole thing,
mm,
right? Because you have Sunfire open Shojin component, and so what you can do is obviously you get Super Fan Shojin eventually as well, but you can play like a really strong board on Radiant TG Sante for a while because you have Senna pair in that Sante potentially, right? So you can already be thinking about that. You don't have to think about Radiant TG yet, but it makes Radiant TG feel better because obviously you can just Radiant TG the Sante for a bit, have a strong board, and then the nice thing is that there's a really natural progression to the Radiant TG and true damage because you just put it on a Kali, and she uses it really, really well.